What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Today we have on Jacob. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing well.
You're usually in the chat, so it's nice to have you on the
Yeah,
other side of it today. Going
yeah,
going for the big.
definitely.
I know. So thanks for joining me today. So you are people already commenting on your lights. Good looking set of Neptune skies over the tank. Yeah. So you have a 300-gallon tank, 300-gallon water
Yep,
box tank. So I think that's the biggest one they make.
yep. It's 380 total volume.
Yeah.
Um, of course, they factor in a 20-gallon ATO, and
Part of the
I've
water volume.
replaced that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've replaced that ATO with the smaller. I have a direct feed from my RODI.
Mhm.
So
Nice. That's a good way to do it. Have you had any issues with that, or has it been pretty solid? It's
no,
directly
it's
off the
been.
RODI unit.
It goes from the RODI unit to a 5-gallon like slim reservoir. I wanted sump space, so I opted for just a custom acrylic little 5-gallon slim RODI container. So it feeds directly into there with uh, through Apex with the solenoid, and then I have a backup float valve. Haven't had any issues, knock on wood, but I have a few redundancies in place. So
Nice. That's pretty solid. It's all about the redundancies when you're doing this type of stuff, and
yes,
you're on the Reef Geek side for sure. Uh,
definitely.
yeah. All right. Someone says it's a little bit echoey. Hopefully, I don't know. Only one person said that though. So if more people say it's echoey, let me know, and I'll see if I can dig. But mine's not echoing. All right. Okay, one person. It's not echoing. Sorry. Sorry, Bert. Bert Squirrel. Okay, so we're both techie. We're both on the IT side. So I know you're pretty hardcore into the automate everything as well, which is always kind of a fun rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I guess what's the kind of craziest thing you've done on your tank so far? Would you think, or the most like extreme thing you've done with it?
Um, I think the most extreme, well, I mean, uh, I don't call it extreme because it's a lot easier than I thought it would be going into it, but my
Mm-hmm.
auto water change system, um, I've recently upgraded that to, 100-gallon bins since I have a bigger tank now.
Yeah.
I had to my goal is to have 30 days worth of whatever that if I'm
Yeah.
going to do something, I want it to be on a 30-day interval. And so I set up the auto water change, and I went way overkill and used an Apex the Core 20 pump, so I could really schedule it to
Yep.
um, yeah. So I've automated that as much as I can, and
Mm-hmm.
put liquid level or optical sensors in the saltwater bin, um, and then of course my sump. I have uh, all of the automation I think I can possibly do using Apex, and then a Reef, the Reef mat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's my auto water change
yeah.
setup.
See if I can
So
zoom that out a bit. Yeah. So that
that was
is. Yeah, so those are some pretty solid bins. Those are big. Those are
yes,
100 gallons ish.
100 gallons each, or maybe
Nice.
105. I can't recall, but it's about a month worth of. Uh, I do roughly 30% water change over the course of the month. So
Nice.
um,
That's a pretty good amount. So you're obviously using the dose for it, as I see that above it.
yes, using
Now,
the dose for it.
are you doing it just daily water changes? Do you do it at any random intervals
Um,
or?
I do it slowly throughout the day, so
Mhm.
it runs pretty much all day. Every few minutes it kicks on. It's in my garage, so I don't really have the issue of noise.
Don't need the new
If
quiet drive for it.
right, as long as my wife can't hear it, we're good because she has
Yeah,
like spider senses.
that's fair. Having the garage space is definitely nice for that one.
Yes. Um, yeah, and my goal, actually, I got into reef keeping because I've gone scuba diving all over the
Hmm.
world, and I worked overseas for a long time. So uh, I always told myself, when I get home, I'm gonna uh, get a saltwater aquarium. And then I started looking into it, and I think my biggest driver was how automated can I get this? Which brought me to your channel, who's like the
Love
ultimate
it.
in nerd in automation. So uh, yeah, it was kind of a goal to see how automated I could get this.
Mhm.
And um, one
It,
thing led to another, and went from a 30-gallon tank to a 100-gallon display, and now to this.
yeah,
So
that's awesome. Is is there anything that you haven't automated that you want to automate still?
Um, yes, the most simplest of tasks for this tank. I have not uh, put an auto feeder on it.
Ah,
Um,
fair.
I have an Apex auto feeder that clamps to the side, but these larger water boxes have a Euro brace. So, I mean, I guess I could set it on the Euro brace and uh, let it roll. I haven't done
Yeah.
that.
I've seen little 3D printed brackets that work for that. Or you could do what I did a long time ago where I actually put it in the sump and let the return pump suck it up and then spit the pellets into the tank.
Uh, Oh yeah, I didn't think of that. So,
Well, then you can hide it too, right? And there's nothing on the top,
yeah.
which makes it look cleaner. That was the original goal way back when, but
And really, I just need that for when I go out of town because I do
yeah.
like, I work from home mostly, so I enjoy coming in and seeing the fish get all excited and
Hmm.
giving them good
Everyone
food.
everyone loves feeding the tank. I mean, it
Yeah.
is fun watching it. It's one of those things.
Yep.
So as for the tank, so definitely mixed reef. Is there any favorite types of coral or things that you kind of gravitate towards for your tank?
I would say definitely Goniopora.
Yeah,
Um,
good choice.
I
Good
love me
choice.
some Goniopora. Uh, and I let's see, Valentine's Day, my wife got me a glitter bomb Goniopora.
Yeah, is
So um,
that the one you sent me a
it's
photo of
actually
earlier?
doing. No, that one's a different one that I sent you earlier.
What was that
I
one?
have yeah, that one I don't know the name of that, but that one's
Okay.
definitely like a long tentacle, and I think that one's about to have babies. Um, I've seen some people post where, a little ball forms on the Gonipora colony and it
Yeah.
pops off, and I
Really?
noticed today yeah, like the little that other picture I
Yeah.
sent you
So
today, yeah, see those little balls that are
yeah.
forming?
Huh.
I've seen them where 1 or 2 will pop off, but this one has, like, just a ton of them ready to generate new colonies, hopefully. We'll see how that works. I've been keeping an eye on it. It's been doing that for, the last month. It's been growing these, uh, I don't know what you would call them, but,
I've seen
uh,
the little bumps and stuff grow on it, but I've never actually seen them pop off. So let me know if that happens. Actually, I'm really curious about that.
yeah, I've seen it on a few of the I think there's a Goniopora Facebook page that I frequent. So, I'm hoping that's what happens, and then, I have some of my uh, have a Burning Man Goniopora. I
Mhm.
didn't send you a picture of that one, but I have some really, really cool varieties. And then other favorites, honestly, is a toadstool leather.
Yeah.
It's it's kind of angry right now and closed or the polyps aren't extended. Um, but that one's cool because it just drops off little pieces, and I take those pieces and put them on frags, and I will take the frags to my LFS and exchange it for food and other things. So,
If the tank can support itself, I mean, that's a huge win, which you
yeah,
gotta love that, right? Especially if, the hobby essentially pays for itself. It's the long term goal. It doesn't happen up front, but long term,
yeah.
once your tanker is out, there's definitely potential.
At least I can give my wife hope that eventually it'll pay for itself, and I won't,
Yeah.
but I'm really far away from that. Uh,
Yeah, that I remember when I first started reefing, there was, or I'd pay for like I'd buy a bazillion corals and stuff, but now I basically just trade stuff all the time. So I'm
yeah,
just like, they're like, how much you want for that? I'm just like, what do you want on trade? I'm like, just send them a picture of my tank. I'm like, pick something. I don't care. I'll frag you whatever. So that's always
yeah.
yeah,
And I
it's
have a couple of SPS colonies that are.
mm,
I think this one's like a pearlberry.
nice.
Um, that thing is growing like crazy. I end up cutting pieces off and fragging those, and usually I end up giving them away. And
Mm.
um, you know, I'm definitely not in this for making money, and I don't think anyone should start out with that being the immediate
Yeah.
goal.
In my in the earlier days, there was this thing where I'd be like, "Oh, I try and sell corals," but now I'm like, I don't care anymore. Like, I'd rather just
Yeah,
trade stuff. I could care less about it now. It's just, I don't know. It's more fun.
yeah.
Do you have a good reefing scene where you live or in your area?
Um, let's see. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. We actually just had a Reef Fest here in San Antonio. I
Mm,
missed it.
yeah.
Don't know how that happened. Um, I usually make all of those, but there are more than I expected. I'll say
Mm,
more reefers than I expected. And I've had really good luck getting coral from local guys out of the garage.
yep. Sorry, give me
So,
2 seconds.
yep.
Okay, sorry. Um, do. Okay, so yeah, San Antonio. There is actually, I don't know if you know Jeff. Sorry, Texas is probably huge. I don't want another reef with a massive tank out in your area.
Yeah.
Just to get you
It's
guys
right down the
connected one
road.
day.
Could
Yeah,
be 800 miles.
yeah, it's a big area. You never
So,
know.
yeah.
So
Um,
solid collection of fish as I'm watching them also around the background.
yeah, I have, let's see, a purple tang, yellow tang, um, powder brown. There's my fox face rabbit fish, and um actually, my favorite is my lawnmower Blenny.
Yeah,
Blennies always have the coolest personalities, and my daughter calls him Mr. Grumpy Pants. So,
they do have that look on their face, so I definitely see
yeah.
it. Uh,
So,
it's chaos in the background outside of me. Hopefully, it's not too loud over my mic. Um, for
I have some chaos in the background too.
oh,
I
I
I
know.
hear my son. I think he's
Yeah, I heard the
yeah.
baby, the dog barking, and it was like 8,000 things on streaming.
Yeah.
Um, what was I just gonna ask you? Something good. I'll come back. Okay, so fish tank, you got a pretty good fish load. Oh, now with your tank, your 300-gallon tank, and you're doing the whole all your dosing with Alpha Reef, right?
Yes, off reef. And I will say, like, I'll take my eyes off of my Apex for uh a couple of weeks, and I'll log in just to see how things are. It is always stable. Right now, I'm looking at it 8.64 alkalinity, 462 calcium, and 1407 magnesium. And I have done nothing, no kind of adjusting in
Yep.
probably a month.
Do
And
you do you tweak it yourself, or do you have it like auto tweak itself?
I tweak it myself. Like uh, the tricky part about auto tweaking it is alkalinity. You dose for alkalinity and then you take a reading. It's not going to reflect that for from what I've seen, like 1 to 2 days, really.
Yeah.
So I make small adjustments. The only time
Mm,
I run into a problem is when my dosing container runs dry. So, and that is an issue with I won't say it's a problem with Alpha Reef. It
mm,
develops this organic matter in the
mm,
dosing container.
yeah.
And I think last time you had Lou on, I asked the question. He said it's not harmful or anything like that, but he also said um, really you can put like 2 weeks worth in a dosing container. If you try to do any more than that, then you'll get all that buildup. So, um, despite my best efforts to keep a 1 month supply in a dosing container, I have to change that out. I mix them up in 1 liter batches, and right now I dose 80, 88 milliliters a day.
That's a good chunk, and that's working well. That's awesome. I'm tempted to try it on a bigger system now. I've I'm you just made me look at mine because I have a little glass dosing bottle for the nano tank beside me, which I've only filled it once. So it's been like going the long term. And the sides and the tube, everything's fine, but on the bottom there's a little bit of like a white haziness, which is probably related.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it a little light
Uh,
also. Yeah, that's fair.
yeah. And, my dosing reservoir stays in in the sump. I do have a refugium light that turns on, but it stays pretty dark. My sump is, 8 feet long, so I have a refugium on one side and then the dosing container on the other. But it still seems to develop that um, brown chunks of organic matter.
Yeah. Brown chunks, eh? Okay, so mine's just like a bit of a white milky. Interesting. I'm gonna go check my other tank later because I'm curious to see if I'm getting that too.
Yep.
Yep, that's
So
fair.
that 10 days comes soon. I mix up a liter, and about 10 days later I have to mix up another one. And um
I
I've
guess
even I've tried putting the pill mixer under the
yeah,
all thing, but
did it make a difference?
I probably need a better quality one. Mine, after a few days, started. It was just loud, and
Yeah,
I didn't like the noise coming from my sump.
fair enough. Fair enough. I guess is there any issues like if that does develop, does it hurt if it gets dosed to the tank? Like someone in the
No,
chat just said nano dosing dilute the alpha reef to avoid clogging tubes. So I guess potential to clog a tube maybe, but if it or it might just pass right through your doser and not be an issue. I don't know.
yeah, I think so. I actually, um, I had I think it was the Aqua Vitro doser.
Mhm.
Um, it's modular. You can you know, add to it, and I was using that, and I switched to the dose because it was more powerful, and I could do a bigger dosing tube. I could actually run it with RO tubing. So that's what I'm doing now. I've never had it clog. I mean, I have some buildup on the ends, but it still seems to push through it, and my uh, dosing still happens at the same rate, whether there's a little bit of buildup or not. So
Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt anything. I guess it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I was kind of curious because yours is the biggest system I've seen it used on. Because I know initially they said, okay, it could be, smaller tanks. And then over
yeah,
time, they're like, okay, bigger systems. You're like, yeah, 340, 50 gallons. You're like, all for reef. So that's cool.
there's some benefits to doing other methods like increase pH.
Hmm.
Um, I know that's a big one, but I don't really have an issue with my pH, so I haven't wanted to explore those other options. So, not to say I won't in the future, but my pH usually I bottom out around 8.05, and
Oh, yeah, you're
it
good.
ranges from 8.05 to 8.35. So that's throughout the day.
That's perfect. You have zero need to go down these rabbit holes. There is so
Right.
many of them, and they can 100% suck you in. I've been down them all. So yeah, you are in a happy place. Avoid them. Save yourself the headache.
Yep. And
Yep.
Alpha Reef isn't that expensive if you buy
Mhm.
the powder version that
Yeah.
makes 10 liters for, I think it's somewhere around $75 or whatever it is. So
Yep.
we'll call it $7.50 every 10 days. So less than $25 a month. And I have my solution
Yeah, that's not bad.
for, yeah, for the three main, calcium, alkalinity,
Yep.
magnesium.
It's yeah. I'm been planning on downsizing my office tank a little bit, and I think I might actually try it as just the main supplement for a while. It's very appealing, just one container, one dosing
Yeah.
head. So I've been like pulling people's experiences for a while on that. So it's good to hear overall it's pretty solid on the big system.
Yeah. Every once in a while I would have to dose magnesium to get it from the I think if I don't add magnesium, it settles in around 1380. Um, I like to run mine at 1450, but it's not like critical. And that's one of those you can raise it from 1380 to 1450 in a single dose and no adverse effects. So every once in a while I'll add a few cups of magnesium in and I'm good for another month or two.
Yeah, it's not bad. That's pretty good. Now, you had a smaller tank before this one, right? The one that's
Yes, it
moving
was.
to the office.
Yep, that was a Waterbox 130,
Hmm.
so a 100-gallon display.
Yep.
And I've actually moved it out of my garage to my wife's office and
Nice.
still haven't decided what the theme is going to be. The only requirement is from my wife is she wants a puffer fish, like a porcupine. Or so does that mean it's going to be a predator tank or I don't know. I haven't done enough research to figure out what that can cohabitate with.
Yeah. Quick shout out, Jonathan. Thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. Okay. With the
Oh, that was
puffers.
Jonathan Flint. So he lives down the street from
Oh,
me. He's
that's
my
awesome.
reefing buddy.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we
awesome.
I finally converted him to an auto water change
Nice.
and an RODI system feeding his container. I
It,
don't think he'll ever look back. So
it is so nice to have that.
yeah,
It's both my tanks basically have an auto and RO tank, I guess ATO tank, but they refill themselves. So not
right.
having to think about it or worry about it is just such a nice thing.
Hauling buckets through the house.
That you spill water, you make a mess. I mean,
Yep.
avoiding hauling water, it's just gonna save your life, make your life easier. Now, since you do an auto water change, do you ever vacuum your sand bed or stuff anymore? Or not really,
You
because
know,
you're like, I had water change.
as I was cleaning the glass today, I noticed there's, it's still not bad. I haven't done a vacuuming of sand bed on this one, but my thought is I'll add more cleanup crew and more
Hmm.
sand sifting critters.
Yep.
Right now, I have a few good ones. There's a lobster that lives in this GSP cave here. He comes out at
Nice.
night and stirs things up.
Yep.
And then sand sifting starfish, some of the conch snails are really good for really turning the sand bed. So
Mm.
I would prefer to do a natural cleanup crew method for the sand bed, but it may get to a point where I need to, you know, pick little sections and do some
Yep.
sand bed maintenance.
Yeah, well, that's fair points. I've realized every few months now I've been trying to do it. So I would just like do like a brute container.
Yeah.
And that's my excuse for water change. But I think I'm going to go back to auto water changes. The tank was just happier, more stable. It actually happens. Automated
Yeah.
sandbag cleaning. Exactly. You just got to hire the right cleanup crew.
Yeah, if we could dial that in, we can make a lot of money selling a
No
solution that they have the robot vacuums, they have the robot pool cleaners. We need a robot like
sand
sand
cleaner.
bed. Yeah, just to
Could be
yeah.
good. I mean, sand sifting starfish do a number on a sand bed.
Yeah, and the so recently I had a sand sifting starfish that got too close to my Nero 5
Oh,
on the
no.
back and got sucked in.
Ah,
It didn't get sucked in, but it
mm,
definitely killed it. So I'm gonna
dang,
have
that
to
sucks.
replace that one. Usually they just lose an arm and they're, you know,
Yeah.
from whatever it is,
Okay.
they'll grow back and be
Yeah.
healthy. But yeah.
So speaking of Nero 5, what all do you have for pumps on there?
So right now um, I had the wave, the Neptune wave,
Hmm.
um, one on either side. Now, recently, this one on over here, the cage fell off and the propeller broke. Like a piece broke off of the
Oh,
propeller. It
dang.
actually ended up killing one of my one of my uh, little orange. I can't remember what the not chromis, but
Antius?
Antheus, yeah.
Yeah.
One of my Antheus got too close to it and it
Ah, yikes.
killed one. And
That sucks.
um, I didn't even notice that it happened until, um, you know, I look over and my SPS is kind of distressed because it's not getting enough flow. So I
Mm,
added an AI orbit. So right now I
mm,
have one wave. I have my other wave that will be getting a little propeller
propeller.
replaced. Um, So then I have a Nero 5 on each side in the back. Now, I also have two Nero 7s.
Mm,
So I think I'm going to try replacing the waves with the Nero 7s,
yep.
um, just because they do a more broad, and having the Nero 5s in the back and the orbit on one side, I would say, plenty of flow.
Hmm.
Uh,
That's a good
but
chunk.
yeah, you definitely start to see STN or RTN if your flow goes down. I had to clip a piece of SPS off that died
Yeah.
from that. So
Yeah, it's crazy how important flow really is in a tank and just having enough of it,
yeah,
especially to if you have higher light. And then again, you almost kind of need the higher flow to balance things out.
yeah, and higher light. Speaking of that, one thing I learned uh, a couple of months ago, I was depriving my coral of light.
Mm.
Um, and I didn't even realize it, and I actually got out my par meter. I have all these things, and they do me no good unless I use them,
Use
kind of
them.
like test kits. And so I've
Yeah.
had this par meter sitting around, and I looked at it, I'm like, okay, my SPS are getting like 180 pars, uh,
Mm.
just not enough. And I raised my lighting schedule, gradually, um, and all of a sudden my pH shot through the roof.
Yeah.
And when my pH shot through the roof, my alpha reef dosing, I had to increase it by like probably 25% to keep up with the consumption because,
Mm.
more light means more nutrient or more uptake of calcium and alkalinity. And that led to higher pH. And it was like, it looked like I gave my tank a dose of Miracle Grow just by
Really,
correcting the lighting. Yeah,
that's
within
crazy.
days. Like,
What? So, what percentage did you jump it up by? Like, what was it roughly? What was it before and afterwards?
so I think at the top third of my tank, it was probably around 200.
Mm.
Um, and then now the top third of the tank is closer to 350 to 400,
Yes.
you know?
Mm.
Um, some of the places get like I guess right near the surface is probably 450 to 500, and that's doesn't seem to bother the SPS. Now, I did see it didn't matter how slow I corrected this lighting issue. Mine was
Mm.
one of those like I noticed coral were upset um, and not doing well, so I had to jump it up faster than I would have liked. And in doing that, some of these other corals, they got really upset for a while, but um, most of them have come back and they're thriving. Um, a few of them, I'm still waiting on them to color up.
Yeah.
But
Well, I don't know. That's pretty awesome if you're seeing a change within a few days. Like, that's pretty quick.
yeah, even my wife noticed, and that's how I knew it was like, she's like,
It
man, did you
wasn't
give
just
them
you.
merit?
It's not a
She's like,
placebo.
did you fertilize your coral? they look, they
It's
look
growing
great,
more.
you know?
Yeah.
Especially the SPS. The SPS will, you don't know how they're supposed to look until you see one with full polyp extension, and then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, that's what I've been going for.
That's happier.
Yeah.
Once you swap your pumps to the Nero 7s, let me know how you like them after a couple weeks, like the change.
Yep. I have one of them in. I think the other one comes in tomorrow. And then I also ordered the MXM module to
Yeah.
tie it into Apex. I
Nice.
haven't put that on yet, even though I have several AI
That's
pumps
fair.
already.
That's fair. How do you, I guess, do you have most things tied into the Apex? Like, do you have it all at least plant
Yes.
single pane of
Um,
glass to an extent?
Yeah, I do. I have 2 power bars, so
Hmm.
one on each end of the system, and the reason I put them on separate ends of the system is, for wiring, it made it easier, but mainly I wanted to run my, certain things off of an UPS. Like, I don't want my lights and my heaters drawing from the UPS because then I don't have as much time to, get a generator out and do all that. So I have call it like my life support stuff on one side and then the non-critical stuff on the other side. Uh,
Mm. It's a good
heaters
way of
and
doing
light
it.
is critical, but it takes a while for the temperature to drop, and
Yeah.
corals can go a long time in the dark. So
No, 100% with you on that one. Whenever people ask about that, they're always like, "Can I run the whole tank?" And it's like, it'd be expensive to do
mm,
that. Like, it's totally doable, but it's
yeah,
going to cost a lot more because it eats your batteries up quicker. Where at the end of the day, I mean, flow is your most important thing.
right. So I
Yeah.
have all the power heads and pump. on and ups, and
Mhm.
um, let's see what I have the doser on a pump. I mean, on the ups too, because it's
Yeah,
just it doesn't take that much power in it.
that's true.
Uh, Mainly, you don't want the heaters and light on and ups. That's the main thing
You'll
that
kill it
can
fast.
be separated, and you know. So I just bought the largest ups that I could buy for like a computer, a desktop
Yeah,
computer setup. So largest one I could find, and that's how I do it. It's
nice.
long enough for me to get a generator up and running. So
Well, you might want to play with this later, but one little side project I was doing was trying to more my nano tank, but build it so it could run 12 volt and 24-volt stuff off a 12-volt battery. And then my next
yep.
stage, I'm going to try seeing if I can essentially power everything off the battery charger so that it's
Wow.
essentially its own little UPS built in a way. So we'll see. I got a bunch of parts I've been dabbling with for that for the next little project, which might be cool if it works out.
Yep. And I think you can buy large lithium batteries like for RVs and
Yeah.
stuff, and uh, those would power it for a while.
Yeah. I have a few of those.
Yeah.
I have a slight obsession with those for battery backups now. But yeah, like you can get like the 100 amp mini ones, and that's going to run your pumps for days, which like I don't know, it's
Yeah.
just such a cool solution for that.
Yeah, I might look into that. I also have an RV, so I've been
Dual
dabbling
in.
with um, well, I've been researching solar and these lithium like 400 amp
Yep,
battery
those big
packs,
beasts.
and then a lot of stuff is 12 volt, but if you run it on 24 volt, it's a lot more efficient.
But
So,
like
yep,
100 amp hour battery, like it's not that big. Like it's not that hard
yeah,
to find
and
in
that'll
the
run it for
stand
a
for
while.
100 amps. Like that's like running your power heads for days and days.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, we get cold snaps here in Texas. I'll
Mm.
call it a cold snap. You'll call it like a warm front up there in Canada. But uh, yeah, we've had power outages that, last for days.
Yeah.
And um, thankfully, in my new house, I have not had to um, break out the generators yet.
Mhm.
But, you know,
Do yeah. If you live in, you get lots of sunshine there. Like doing a
yeah,
little like couple solar panels on your roof, powering your battery backup for all your flow pumps, you'd probably not even have to bust out the Jenny unless it was out for days.
yeah, I could. Yep. I've thought about that too. And,
Yeah.
you know, doing obviously a whole house generator would be nice. We just
Yeah.
haven't needed it yet. When we need it the next time, if our power ever goes out like it did a few years ago, we went like 4 or 5 days with no power
Yeah.
basically. And
That's
thankfully I had a generator, but the generator was enough to, you know, power one space heater. And like we ended up setting up a tent in our living room. We had a newborn at the time,
oh
and
no.
yeah, it was a terrible experience. And we said then, like, okay, we're gonna get a whole house generator, and we've
Mhm.
kind of forgotten about it. And I'm sure it'll come up again one day.
Next power did you be like, okay, this time we're
Yeah.
actually gonna do it. Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
Did you have a tank at the time?
Uh, no, that
Ah,
was
okay.
before the obsession.
That's fair. You dodged it. I
Before
was
the
gonna
bug.
I was gonna say you'd be divvying it up between the tank and the space heater, but you got a newborn, so I mean, you'd all be in one big tent.
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy. That's great. Does it get that cold in Texas?
So that time we lost power everywhere. It was, definitely in the single digits
Okay.
Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So negative Celsius. So yeah. Um,
Thinking that right now. Okay.
it
Yeah.
does get surprisingly cold here when there's a cold snap.
Yeah,
So
that's fair. Okay. So right now you got the computer UPS, and that does your backup flow for now. And then you have a generator for backup.
yeah,
Oh,
two
that's
generators.
two
One
generators.
yeah, one on standby in case the other one doesn't work. I'm very,
Solid?
usually if I identify something that could go out and cause problems, I will buy a backup of that. So, for example, my reef mat, uh, didn't realize how common it was for those little motors to go out.
Yeah.
So, uh, it only took me, uh, as soon as mine went out, I went online and ordered 3 of them. So I have a drawer you know,
That's for
with a
your
couple
backup.
of extras.
This
Yeah.
is this is how I know you work in IT and tech stuff.
Yeah.
You're like, where's my
I mean,
redundancy?
I actually have a backup for my Apex brain. Like,
Hmm.
I could bring another Apex in. I have a I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to say. I actually have an Apex Junior
Yeah.
still new in the box that one of these days I'll set it up on my little 20-gallon nano tank. But
Mm.
uh, then I have another Apex Pro that I'll set up at my other aquarium at my wife's office.
Nice.
Um, so I have backups for everything.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah, and when I order reef mat, I call them toilet paper rolls, but
Yeah.
I order them by the dozen.
Hmm. The stock
'Cause
up.
I just don't like, needing it and not having it, so
Yeah. The other useful thing too, if you do have multiple tanks, is like standardize certain equipment like that. So you're like, okay, I don't have
yep,
to worry about one type of rolls. Like on
yeah,
mine, I have the Clarisy, but I'm like, okay, both tanks are getting the 5,000, so I don't have to stock two different rolls when I order. I just buy one and it can go to whatever tank needs it.
yep,
Makes your life easier.
so yeah, and then actually one thing I need to when I was cleaning the glass today, they
Mm.
say UV lamps, are usually good for about a year. In my experience, if you replace them every 6 months, you get a lot, more benefit out of them. 6 months might be extreme, but
Mhm.
certainly at the 9-month mark, I replace mine, and, uh, I am due for a new one right now, and
Now,
I
what?
could tell a difference in just the dirtiness of the glass.
Okay, I was gonna ask, is it like how the glass cleaning frequency? That's like the biggest thing that stands out to you when you replace it.
Yeah, when I replace it, I will notice an immediate, I'll get twice as long between, I can go 2 weeks without cleaning the glass,
Really?
I say 2 weeks, uh, mm, probably
My tank,
10 days,
my tank's like 2 days, and there's a haze on the glass. Like, I think you've inspired me to turn my UV back on and see if that pushes it.
Yeah, now I have a much larger UV. It's hanging, it's at the top of, mounted to the, uh, upper side of the, uh, sump or cabinet. So
Nice.
it's out of the way, out of
Yeah.
sight, out of mind. So I have to set an actual calendar reminder to replace that.
How much of a pain is it to change it? Is it not bad, or is it?
So I got the little clamps they sell on bulk reef supply, the quick
Yeah.
release clamps. So
Oh,
I just
nice.
take those off, and it's actually, uh, really easy. That's the nice thing about having an 8-foot aquarium. You have an
Mhm.
8-foot sump, and there's like so much room to work around, to actually do stuff.
That is
So
nice.
yeah.
How big is your sump compared to like the rest of the tank? I don't know if you sent me a photo of that one or not.
Um, it's probably I have kids stuff here too, but uh I have it pretty close to the edge there, and it
Mhm.
goes to right here. So I would
Okay.
call that 5.5 feet maybe.
Yeah.
And then
See,
I have all of this room for other stuff
yeah.
like my
Nice.
automation stuff.
Yep. So
I know you
dual auto
recognize that.
testers.
Yeah, but I the Mastertronic it requires a lot of upkeep. There's something to be said about having uh, the Trident. It's just simple, you know.
Yeah.
So I rarely use the Mastertronic right now. I will be getting the new Trident
The
nutrient
NP.
tester. Yes.
Yep.
So
Now, now, out of curiosity, for the upkeep, is that just for like the recalibration of it, or is it refilling it? Like,
recalibration,
what's the
and
upkeep?
I mean, the latest thing that went wrong is it's overfilled my covets, and um, and that was after I had to do the whole flashing the SD card because that
Ah, okay,
got
yeah.
corrupt over. It's just there's also a lot more wastewater
Hmm.
generated, and if you don't have a drain, which I don't have a drain, I have a one
Fair point.
gallon container,
Yep.
and uh, with the Trident, it tells me exactly when I need to empty that
Yep.
container. But with the Mastertronic, it rinses the cuvets out after,
Between every
you know,
test.
between every test and between stages of the test, and
Hmm.
you will fill up a gallon very quickly.
Yep. No,
So,
that's fair. One thing that I found semi interesting with the Trident 10P when I had Paul on the other week about it was that for the waste container, I guess because it's acidic, but they give you something to add to your waste container so that it neutralizes it, I guess. But I have mine
yeah,
piped to
I
the
heard that.
drain. I know. So I was like, I wonder if I can still have it piped to the drain or if I'm going to need a container to like intermediate. But
Or you could put like a RO or water tube with a solenoid and have it rinse it out, rinse the drain out,
that's a not bad idea.
yeah, after every test or every 6 hours, or have it
That's,
open up for 5 seconds or 10 seconds.
I like it.
Yeah.
Wise, wise. Yeah, just rinse out your drain line.
Yeah.
Just pump your R. Or uh, if I hooked up my RO waste line to feed to the drain line with like a T adapter, so whenever it made RO,
Oh, yeah.
it all flushed
Yep.
through the line. Maybe, but it'd have to make RO fairly frequently for that to be effective. Anyways, potential here.
Yes.
I like it. um, yeah, no, I was curious to your experience. Lee in the chat, he's like, had my Mastertronic 2 years, never had an issue. But I'm always curious to hear different experiences on things.
Yeah, and for the whole reason I got the Mastertronic is I had
Mm-hmm.
the dino outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
It was a- it was actually in my old aquarium, my 100 gallon. Um, and everybody was saying, black out the tank for, you know, 3 or 4 days or whatever it is. And nothing I was doing was helping. So I know what caused it. My nitrates and phosphates bottomed out.
Yeah.
So uh, I was about to leave to Turks and Caicos for a vacation, and
Mm-hmm.
so I ordered the Mastertronic, got it set up, set it to do nitrate and phosphate testing, and I had a doser with NeoPhos and NeoNitro, um, so I could control it from my phone, and
Nice.
I would do a daily test, and I would dose accordingly. And all I did to fix my dino problem is uh, get my nitrates and phosphates in check. And by the time I
So
got back from Turks and Caicos, like a week later, there was not a sign of them.
that's
And
a
I had the LC, I don't know, the large cell or whatever it is, variety of dino. Um,
that's the most easy success story I've ever heard with dinos. You're like went on
yeah,
vacation, a little bit of
yeah, I
dosing,
left it
came back,
alone.
tank was great.
I was dosing, I'd get the test results and I would just dose accordingly to keep my nitrates and phosphates. Um, it, I, it really, they just can't be at zero, but I was shooting
Hmm.
for, like a 0.05 and like a 6 or 7 for nitrates,
Yep.
somewhere in there. Um, but yeah, actually, that Dino outbreak, that's the reason I got the Mastertronic. It worked for a long time, and then I got the new tank. I didn't hook it up, and I think that's where I went wrong. It sat unused for too long. So
Fair.
kind of like a car, you don't start it, and then you start it up
Yep.
3 months later, and you have all these problems. So, uh, but I
Yeah.
also in that Dino outbreak, I got like a little microscope, and uh, that's like a whole other hobby. You
Mhm.
can look at stuff through the microscope. My daughter enjoyed it, and um, so it's actually my Dino experience was definitely not as bad as what I've heard.
Yeah. No, that's a pretty good one. That's a good success. Tracy, quick shout out. Thanks for the super chat. Much appreciated, buddy. Now with dinos, honestly, that's like the biggest success story I've heard. Most people fight it for a while, so that was a good win on your part, just by opening it, which is awesome.
And
Um,
now that's why I say as soon as that Trident is available, the new one, the
they're all
MX,
over it.
I am, yeah, if I could send money to pre-order it. I would
You
do that
would?
right now.
There's a will,
Yes.
there's a way. That's fair. Yeah, I'm curious to check it out. I don't know. It's cool. There's a lot of new testers coming out now, and it kind of made me laugh when I saw like the thing because I know there's a few different ones are popping up, and one post something, and I see the next one, post their thing the day afterwards, and made me laugh. But yeah,
Yep.
there's lots coming out, but it's good. I think it's awesome for us, right? Having lots of
Right.
cool new innovation and products coming out.
Yeah, and I don't mind having multiple
Yeah,
there's that new one coming out around the same time that's going to do nitrates and phosphates. May end up getting that one too, and one
well,
keeps the other one honest.
that I was gonna say that if you have two, I mean that's kind of does right. If you're
Yeah.
both your testers are relatively close, you're like, yeah, it's fine. If they're out completely out to lunch, compared to each other, and you're like, all right, I guess I'll do a manual test,
Yep.
see which one's true. Reef junkie, my fight with LCA, I dosed silicates for 4 weeks and they cleared up. Yeah, it's another
And
method.
you know what? I had ordered the silicates and all that stuff, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to introduce the diatom bloom to get
Hmm.
rid of this, which diatoms are easier to get rid of than dinos.
Yeah.
And I understood the reasoning behind it. I was just, for one thing, I was going on vacation. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I need to, at a bare minimum, get my nutrients in check. Otherwise, anything I do to treat it is just going to treat you uh,
Eat it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it'll treat it, won't beat it.
Yep.
So I was ready to do the other route and introduce diatoms to combat dinos, but thankfully I didn't have to go to that extreme.
No, that's nice. When I had I did basically the kitchen sink. I'm like silicates this, that,
Yeah,
UV, and like everything I could think of. I'm like, I don't want to go away. It's just like everything you could think of, you throw it at it.
I was ready to do it.
I don't blame you. I would too.
My most recent battle was vermitid snails.
Did you win?
Um, so let me see. Yes, I can look at it right now and say that there are a few, but
Hmm.
Um, I finally found the mother colony. There's I guess I don't know the
The source
breeder,
of the horde.
the source, and it was on the base of one of my SPS, one of my
Hmm.
SPS colonies, and it was
Yeah.
a large colony, so it was right at the base. So I fragged that colony up and um, got rid of that. Uh, there was like two or three huge fermented snails, and when I did that, it worked. I
Ah,
also purchased some stuff to dose to what is it called? The calcium carbonate
carbonate
or
powder. Yeah.
yeah. So I have some of that. I haven't done that yet, but um I was going to kind of see how this went. And I definitely noticed no more verminid snails popping up everywhere. I
Oh,
still
that's
have some like leftover shells, but
yep.
uh, yeah, it's not bad.
That's not bad. I did kind of the two-prong approach with those where I did the calcium carbonate powder and then added a bunch of bumblebee snails as well. And that seemed to,
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I did add a bunch of bumblebee snails, and I
yeah.
think that probably did more than I give them credit for.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I added I want to say 25 bumblebee
Mm,
snails. Um, yeah,
nice.
I was ready to try anything. And a lot of these pests that you introduce, like early on, you see them on the coral and you don't realize what it is. But like I can pinpoint the coral that brought that in. And I'm like, if I would have only paid more attention and broken off that stupid verminid snail, I could have avoided all of this. But you know, you learn,
You
live
do.
and learn.
You do. It's yeah, even now, because I'm still like when I change my office tank, I'm like, am I gonna use my rock? Because I'm like, there is still some verminted in there. It's like, do I really want to introduce that to a new tank? But then you're like,
Yeah.
or do you really want to start fresh with new rock and have a longer cycle? It's like,
Yep.
yep.
And some people, a lot of the verminid snail is nutrients in their filter feeders, and
Mm,
um, but if you like, I enjoy. feeding my tank. I enjoy feeding the coral like at night.
Yeah.
I don't want to reduce the amount of reefroids I dump in there because I like the reaction of some of these, you know, some of these coral. So
No,
um,
very, very true. So,
yeah, and then there's some pests that you definitely cannot avoid, like aptasia. I don't
mhm,
know. I I don't see it in my display, but in my refugium, I have like I need to put some uh, nudibranchs in my refugium because I have tons of aptasia in there. Never affects the display because I have a file fish that is constant. Like I haven't seen one in my display in probably 6 months.
oh, that's pretty solid.
So
Yeah, I feel you. There's like four, three or four monster ones in mine, but no tiny ones because the copperhead eats them. But he doesn't touch the
yeah,
big ones. It's like
yep,
the other. I don't know if this is worth it yet, but a while back, I had to take out my sump to like fix a plug, but I completely like cleaned it and it's pristine and wonderful. And now I'm like, should I do that to the other tank? But again, it's like such a big project. But a bazillion
yeah.
those little feather dusters and crustaceans and the 8,000 things that are living in the sump.
Didn't something spark that clean the sump day? I
Yeah,
think I remember a
it sucked.
live stream. Yeah.
Yep. The GFCI outlet behind the tank died.
Yes.
Something
Yeah.
got buggered with there, so I had to like took it out, replaced it, clean out the wiring and all that jazz. But that sucked. So, but it was so much work because it's a 4 foot sump, 2 foot by 4 foot
Yeah,
glass
that's
sump. Like it was freaking heavy and it wasn't fun.
respectable.
But it looks amazing now, so I'm like, should I do the other tank?
Yeah, I've thought about cleaning my sump and, keeping it clean and pristine, but it would be um I don't know. I haven't had to clean it yet.
Yep. I mean, it could be its own little refugium system. Adding flexibility to the tank. Maybe it'll mess with the balance if you clean it all. It's hard to say. Something I wonder a lot, right?
Yeah. And I have a lot of sponges growing. This sump and tank it's only been running for since October, so definitely
Hmm.
not a year yet. And I
Oh,
have all
that's pretty
kinds of
good.
sponges and stuff
Yeah.
uh in the refugium. I don't know if I want to, or in the sump,
Yep.
but I don't know if I'm ready to clean it out yet.
It's doing pretty good for less than a year.
Yeah,
It's coming along
it's
nicely.
been coming along. And you
Hmm.
know what's crazy? There's something to be said about tank maturity.
Hmm.
Hold on, I have kids in the background. Can you hear
Just
that?
a little bit. It's
They
it's
are
okay.
going
It's not too
crazy.
bad.
Um, so I have uh, all the rock from here that way is from my old system,
Hmm.
and this big giant arch and the rock here is new rock.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's crazy because I noticed I didn't grow hardly any algae at this side of the tank stayed really clean with the
Yeah.
mature rock.
Yeah.
And so I would have like one dirty side, one side of my tank was going through like the ugly stage, and this one was just fine.
Oh, that's
And
funny, eh?
even the coralline, the coralline started growing on the mature side first. And uh, it was a very noticeable difference between having mature rock from an existing system to new rock on the other side of the tank. And I think it helps having like 8 feet to mess with because this side of the tank doesn't care how mature that
Hmm.
side of the tank is. So
Yeah, that's crazy the difference, eh? Like one has that
yeah,
biofilm, one has that life on it that kind
yeah,
of maintains it. Ah, it's
yeah.
crazy.
So now any tank I start in the future, even right now I'm baking some rock in my sump for this tank that I'm setting up for my wife.
Yeah,
Um, so
nice.
hopefully we can avoid some of the uglies.
That's fair. I ordered. I've never actually tried it, but that zipper racks, that like those little
Yeah,
glass little noodly things. I just ordered a bunch of that today. That I'm gonna throw in my water box up for if I do the new tank, just to like have something that's
yeah.
pre-cycled.
I have
But
a bag, pretty large bag of that stuff in my sump, and I keep
mhm,
it because anytime I have to set up a hospital tank or something,
mhm,
um, I can just grab a handful of that and you know put it in the
gets
hospital
recycled.
tank. And Yeah.
No, it's definitely a good way to go. But yeah, even just for starting new tanks, throw in the wife's tank or the office tank or set up a new nano.
Yep.
It just makes your life so much easier having that maturity introduced.
Yes.
Yep. Have you had any other, so aside from the dinos, did you have any other big hurdles or weirdness or things over the initial almost year of the tank?
Um, most of my issues have been self-inflicted.
Yep.
Like, um, let's see, letting the dosing containers run dry or not realizing that, I had an aqua vitro dosing thing for my alpha reef that went out, and it was a couple of days without paying attention to my alarms. So,
Fair.
I've had some of those issues, but now everything's kind of on autopilot.
Hmm.
So I clean my glass. Uh, I try once a week at least, and um, mix up my
Yep.
Alpha Reef solution, and mix up a salt bin once a month, and um, no major hurdles. I went through all those with my 100-gallon.
Yep.
Kind of ironed out made all the mistakes.
Well, that's all right. So the new one's definitely looking pretty good. Any other future plans for the tank, or just kind of
Yeah,
cut corals that
I
grow?
so uh, I'm debating whether or not I want to clean the Coraline off of the back glass.
Yeah.
I don't like how it looks. I mean, I like that pop when it's real clean and black, but
Yep.
um, one thing about having a tank with a Euro brace, it's hard to get in with like a razor on the
Yep.
back. So that's really why I haven't done that. And you can't really get the magnet, I need a
Hmm.
go-go gadget arm.
Yep.
So uh, I'm debating whether or not to clean the black glass. So
That's fair.
I hear I hear mixed, or throw some GSP on the glass and let that take over. But
Turn into a coral wall.
GSP is dangerous stuff, though. Um, it
Yeah.
will overrun coral.
Yeah. It's fine on an island, but yeah, I would never add it to the main rock.
Yeah, I have it on my little GSP rock island,
Yeah.
um, and it stays there, and it's far away from everything else, so I can keep it at bay.
Yep.
Um, but
Beauty.
yeah, I've thought about doing the GSP wall. That would solve the aesthetic problem, but that's a lot of GSP for a tank.
I mean, you could just glue little dots all over the place, and it will spread and join into one massive colony eventually.
It would be interesting to see how high the pH would go with that much GSP, because I mean, more coral you have, the more, uh, you know, more
Mm.
CO2 is scrubbed out of your system. So might be some benefits to that.
That's a good point. I've never actually considered that, especially with
Yeah,
GSP, like softer corals. Yeah.
I didn't really start considering that. I always equated the um, pH to how much CO2 is in your house, you know,
Hmm.
or in the room. Until I have my little lighting experiment where I increase the lighting and the nutrient uptake, or the corals started um, growing and thriving and polyps extending, and my pH shot up through, like, I was getting over, at the time I was using a CO2 scrubber too.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, when I increased my lighting, um, I would say my pH went up at a minimum 0.15.
That's a pretty big jump.
Yeah, and it was just being starved of light. So, I mean, that tells me the coral in your tank has a lot to do with the pH. I mean,
Hmm.
it's scrubbing CO2 out of the water. So it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see what a giant GSP wall would do. It'd probably
Hmm.
be one of the largest GSP colonies that I've seen. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. If you do it, you're going to have to let me know how this goes because
Yeah,
I'm curious now.
I'm talking myself into it right now.
You could also, if you wanted to, you could also do it just on the overflow tower and then just do the
Yeah,
glass. But I've seen that. That could look
start
kind of
there.
funky.
Yep.
There was
But
I don't know if you've watched in my older videos, but there was a tank video I did with a lady named Wincy. I think it was called Super Simple Reef. And she had a couple 100 gallon tank, and her whole overflow tower was just like fluorescent green GSP, and it did look pretty cool. Like it was
yeah.
mainly acros and some LPS, but their fluorescent green overflow. You'd have to like make sure it doesn't like clog the teeth or get too high, but aside from that, it was kind of cool.
Right. And whatever GSP strain I have,
Hmm.
uh, it is very long polyp.
Yeah,
Like it's actually a really nice looking GSP that very
nice.
flowy.
Yep.
I've had some varieties that are, they just uh, n- I don't get the aesthetics, the movement out of them like I do with this strain. And honestly, that's the first this GSP.
Hmm.
It was the first piece of coral that I purchased, and it was years ago for the 30 gallon. And I've just taken pieces in every system
Yep.
and you know grown little GSP caves.
Do you know what's funny? If you talk to someone who's like not a reefer, because GSP, like it is fluorescent, like it is bright
Yeah.
green if you had the blues on. You know, you have your like $200 fancy acro and everything else, and
Oh
everyone's like,
yeah,
"What is that one?" It's like your green grassy GSP flowing. Eh,
yeah.
Yep.
And this little toadstool leather. Now the polyps
Hmm.
are coming out.
Yeah.
Um, People that come over are like, "Oh my gosh, that's my favorite one." Like literally the cheapest. Like it can grow in a toilet,
Yep.
and cheapest, easiest to care for, and that's what catches people's eyes. And I think it's the
Hmm.
movement,
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
and that's why I like Goniopora too. A lot
Yep.
of a lot of movement with Goniopora. So
No, they have great movement, and toadstools are cool too, especially if you have yeah, some of them like the green ones. Like some of the polyps are just so vibrant and like a little bit of flow, funky shape.
yeah,
You know, clownfish like to host them half the time too. Like they'd be fun.
yeah. I've never gotten a clownfish to host anything. I have
Really?
rose bubble tip
Yep.
anemones or rainbow anemones. I have
Mhm.
several of them on a one of the sides. I've in any of my tanks, I've never gotten a clownfish that will host anything.
Yeah. I've had one that used to sleep in a toadstool before. I've had another one that was in a big, I think it was purple nephia. I think it was like
Yeah.
kind of like a leather. And then the one in my tank now, I have one that basically just whenever it's open and out in the daytime, it's like in my Gonny. Red Gonny is like blue blue just plays in the polyps.
Yep.
Yep.
I w
Crazy.
One of these days, I'm gonna, uh, put an anemone in a little cup and get the
Just
clowns in
put
there.
them together, a little acclamation box, and
Yeah.
be like, okay, hang out for the week, become friends.
Yep. Of
It'd be good.
course, um, if I had it to do over again, I probably wouldn't have anemones because it does get annoying when they split and then they split again, and you think they're done splitting and they split 3 more times, and uh, then you're digging them out of power heads and digging chunks out of the sand bed. So,
Yeah, I feel you on that one. If if it was a nem only tank, then yeah, tons of them's
yeah,
awesome. But yeah, if you're trying to do acros and other stuff, they become a nuisance over time, which is can be
yeah.
tricky.
Mine aren't there yet. I started with 1 in this tank, and now I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
So,
The other questionable one for me, I'm always like back and forth on Monty caps because like they can be awesome, but they can also just
yeah.
take over and
And, that's why I kind of separated this out into, like, there's a tower there,
yeah.
there's, like, an arch there, a tower, another formation.
Hmm.
So I have, like, my big, large arch, that's like the, what, 3-foot arch?
Yep.
Um, that's where my SPS lives.
Hmm.
Nothing else, only SPS. And then I have some SPS scattered in other places, but
The main home.
I have most of my Montipora, like the encrusting corals on these towers over here, and they
Yeah.
can fight for real estate without affecting my SPS. So
It's a good way to do it.
yeah,
Nice. The nice thing is too, it's easier to like if you had to move or tweak something later, it's a lot easier to do when it's more islandy versus
yeah,
one massive interconnected structure. That was one of my complaints, I guess, with my water box is because I glued everything together, which looked
right,
awesome. But if you want to move or change things, it makes it really tricky. So the islands make gives you so much more long-term flexibility the way you have it set up.
Yeah, and that was like I said, you learn these lessons over the course of a few tanks, and
Mm,
yeah, the GSP lesson was one I learned early on because it actually grew over everything. I couldn't do. I mean, and once it gets on the rock, it's like it's just there. If it gets on
yeah.
the glass, you can scrape it off easy enough, or in the
Hmm.
sand bed, you can scrape it off. But
Yeah.
yeah, um, my most recent addition was I have 2 clams now.
Oh,
They're about
nice.
5-inch clams. There's
So in the corner, I
one
see
there in
one.
the corner,
Yeah.
yeah, and then there's a brown one in the back, like a golden,
Hmm.
variety over there.
Nice.
So, they're like 5-inch clams, like,
Yeah.
I didn't expect them to be that large, but,
Hmm.
um, I wanted to wait until I had enough nutrients and maturity to throw them in there, so they've done really well over the last 3 months, so,
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, gotta love it. So any other future plans, corals, fish, anything else on the wish list for the tank?
um I think, I need to find some, uh, wrasse. I need a wrasse.
Yeah.
I don't have a wrasse in my tank, and they're really good, predator control. Um, I don't have a bristleworm problem yet,
Hmm.
but I do have bristleworms in there. I see them occasionally at night.
Yep.
I would like to get some, an arrow crab and, a wrasse and
Tone them
kinda.
down.
Yeah, and,
Hmm.
I really like schooling fish, so, I got the Anthias, I have
Yeah.
5 of them, um, and I have some cardinals, but it's crazy, fish just disappear, and what started as a school of, like, 8 or 10
Mm.
cardinals is, dwindled down
Yeah.
to 6 or 7. I think they just pick at each other and disappear, so,
Yeah. Well, that is the crazy thing is too. Sometimes something does, bite the dust. Your cleanup crew could almost like decimate it overnight, and you're like,
yeah.
where'd it go?
I
Yeah.
very rarely find a dead fish. I'll just
Yeah.
notice one's missing. Um, you look in the sump and all the obvious places, but
Hmm.
sometimes they just get eaten up by, starfish and crabs. And I
Yeah.
probably have, I have several hundred snails, and I think I have about 30 or 40 hermit crabs in there. So there's a significant cleanup crew.
Yeah. A lot of tiny creatures that can definitely do the
Yeah.
job if there's extra food.
Yep.
Yep. Good stuff. So you're pretty dang automated. Order changes are water automated. Dosing pretty darn simple with all for Reef, which is pretty awesome. I'm very tempted to try
And
that.
I also dose
Yeah.
uh, coral amino. What is it? Amino fuel or uh,
Aquavito fuel, or there's a few different brands.
it's it's the kind that doesn't need refrigerated.
Two little
It's
fishies one.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So I dose the coral food with that. I buy
Hmm.
gallon jugs and doesn't take much. Um, and then I have nit. So I dose nitrates.
Hmm.
Um, Occasionally, I'll have to dose, phosphates. I use Neophos and Neonitro,
Yeah.
but, I noticed with Reef Mad and Skimmer, and it's hard to keep my nutrients up, and I will feed the heck out of my tank and still just not be able to keep them elevated. So,
Supposedly the Cyperax is supposed to be really effective at lowering nitrates. So you might have too much in there. Just removing that might actually help if
yeah.
you want an easy possible fix.
Yeah, it's been getting better, and I think maturity, um, plays into that a lot.
Hmm.
I dose less nitrates now than I did 5 months ago.
Yeah.
Uh, so I expect it to, stabilize, and,
Hmm.
eventually the goal is to have my coral feeding and fish feeding take care of the nitrates and phosphates, but
Nice.
not there yet. So for now, I will dose.
Yep, that's fair. Okay, your auto water change or mixing station. Did you paint them black or did you find black containers?
I painted them black, and
Mhm.
actually, Jonathan Flint, in the chat,
Yeah.
he's the one that he gave me the idea of the little Plasti Dip stuff. You know, most
Okay.
people do their wheels with Plasti Dip.
Yeah.
Uh, it took quite a few of 'em, quite a few cans, but I did Plasti Dip and
Mhm.
worked out great.
It's holding up
So
well.
yeah, and the other thing to consider before you paint them black, you have to be able to see the water level of your uh, salt bin. And even with the clear containers, it was kind of hard to see. So
Mhm.
I've added these clear
Oh, the
clear
tubes.
tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are plumbed in, and uh, I marked them. I put orange tape since this picture was taken. I've put orange
Hmm.
tape to mark off the, 10, 20, 30. Uh,
Oh,
so
that's handy.
yep. So now I can see what the water level is,
Yep.
and also was good for putting the RO tube down. So I have the RO tube now running down one of those clear tubes, and it keeps it in place.
Hmm. Nice. It's a good way to do it, actually.
So,
Good
yep.
strategy. The other thing I was thinking too, if you were gonna paint one, put like a strip of tape on it and then paint it and peel it off and just have one little strip of like non-painted.
Yes, you could certainly do that. But what I noticed in my last water mixing station, it still wasn't very easy to see because a clear bin isn't really that clear.
Yep.
So
It's so big.
yeah.
Hmm. Oh, that's fair. Beauty. Well, definitely appreciate you coming on and sharing the tank today. Does any other questions, chat? Let me know. I do got to wrap it up pretty quick and go grab the kiddo. But yeah,
Yep.
it's always fun. I know we're both techie, we're both hardcore in automation, so it's always fun seeing different setups and how you work everything.
Yep, and I appreciate you. I've been reaching out to you since I planned this this tank upgrade.
Mhm.
Uh, so been really helpful, and you know, every once in a while I'll go back in your videos and like, "Ah, I think you did a live chat about that," and I'll have to relearn. So I appreciate everything, and yeah, it's been good. This is my tank debut to the world, I guess.
Yep. Well,
So
yeah, definitely is awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing it, and we'll have to do it again one day and do like a future update.
yep,
Yep.
sounds
Awesome.
great.
Awesome. All right, guys. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it. Shelly, Jonathan, Tracy, thank you guys. Super chats. Appreciated. Jacob, thank you for joining me
Yep.
today.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys. As always, you enjoyed it, hit the like button, new subscribe. Catch you guys on the next live stream.